Hi folks, yesterday in these here United States, the Supreme Court passed down a ruling affirming the right of the people to own guns as stated in the Second Amendment. Second Amendment of the Constitution allows us citizens to own guns and rifles. I just need to add this a little bit in. The United States of America is at a boiling point and is about to explode at any moment. Had that decision gone the other way yesterday, that would have been the spark that would have exploded this nation. Believe me when I tell you this. Alright, let's get back to this decision. Back in 1787, when the 55 delegates to the United States Constitution of America met in Philadelphia, they wrote the Second Amendment, as you just read it, giving the right of the people to bear arms. So now when these people finished with the convention and they went back to their respective states, and I think it completed its ratification among the states in 1791, they became members of city councils, mayors, state assemblies, governors, even presidents they became. I ask you this, if that Second Amendment meant that only the militia was supposed to have guns, why didn't they call for the confiscation of pistols and rifles at that time? Why is it for over 100 years nobody called for that? How come the very people who wrote that document didn't call for the confiscation of weapons if the weapons were only supposed to be in the hands of a well-regulated militia? Ask yourself that. So now some of you are going to say, well, they were allowed to keep their guns and their rifles, so when the militia was called up, they were able to take their guns and rifles. No, not so. Because the states maintained throughout their states state armories around their states. And in these armories were guns and pistols and muskets and blunderbuss and whatever kind of armaments they decided they needed. So when Farmer Jones was called to report to the militia, Farmer Jones didn't have to take his rifle with him and leave his family defenseless. Farmer Jones was able to leave his rifle with his family, go to the National Guard Armory, and pick up his rifle and join the rest of his compatriots. That is why gun confiscation wasn't necessary at the time, because first of all it wasn't needed, second of all it wasn't called for in the Constitution by the very men who wrote that in there. And to give you a good point, Alexander Hamilton, I think he was the first treasurer of the United States, and another gentleman named Aaron Burr, they didn't like one another. So they go out into a field and they take two pistols and they get in a duel, and Alexander Hamilton died. So as a result, what did they do? They didn't outlaw pistols because pistols were involved in the dueling. They outlawed dueling, but people were still allowed to keep their pistols. Now we come around 1911, and in 1911, and in the state of New York, I think it was called the Sullivan Act, where they restricted the concealment of handguns in that state. That was the first that started this gun control nonsense. Then in the 1930s, the liberals in the FDR administration, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, they wanted further gun control because they didn't trust the people with guns with their left-wing agenda. But then they looked across the world, and these fascist regimes were marching into one country after another, and they knew that gun control would not gain hold in these United States because Americans wanted to hold on to their guns in case we were invaded. So you see, that's why we keep our guns, to protect against a possible invasion, which I don't think is realistic nowadays, but it's to protect ourselves against the bums and monsters out in our streets, and also to protect ourselves against the tyranny of this government. So the Supreme Court came out yesterday and it said that only 5 out of the 9 read the Constitution in its intent as written by our founders. Remember, you just have to ask yourself this. If the intent was to only keep the guns for a militia, then why did not the founding fathers, once they left the convention, call for the confiscation of weapons? Because, not every adult male back then served in the militia. A lot of them said, the heck with your militia, I don't want to be bothered with it. They could have confiscated those guns. Why didn't they? Because that was not the intent of the Constitution. Alright, kids? See ya. God bless you. God bless America. And God bless the nation you happen to be.
We are springing to the far for 300,000 more.